My family clicked confirm on my daughter's MIT college fund and learned I wasn't bluffing Reddit stories. What they call the harmless rearrangement was a real transfer already in motion. The moment lawyers and banks got involved, the power dynamic shifted in ways they never anticipated. Hi, I'm Larry, 45, Boston, and the day my family tried to steal my daughter's future, I learned exactly how fast a man can go from mild-mannered taxi driver to courtroom-ready avenger. It happened on a Wednesday morning, the kind where the city feels half asleep and everything smells like exhaust and Dunkin'. I thought we were going into the bank to formalize Mia's future. As my dad had put it. I even wore a clean shirt. Stupid, I know. Instead, by the time my sister said the words, "We're using your daughter's college fund for my son's wedding," my dad had already clicked confirm on the transfer screen. All three of them were crowded around the bank manager's computer like they were posing for a dysfunctional family portrait. Megan leaning back like she owned the place. Mom digging in her purse. Dad squinting at the monitor like a confused raccoon trying to read a menu. On the screen, $52,000 transferred out of MIA college fund. And Megan, with all the grace of a woman who's never paid a bill in her life, said, "Weddings are more important than education. People remember weddings. No one remembers where you went to college." Meanwhile, my mother added, without even looking at me, "Besides, she doesn't really need college, Larry. She's too smart anyway." Too smart. My daughter had gotten her MIT acceptance 3 days earlier. I had the printout folded behind my license like a second ID. My throat tightened. My hands shook so badly I had to sit on them. But I didn't scream. Didn't lunge. Didn't flip the desk like an Olympic event. I stood up and said calmly, eerily calmly, "I need to make a call." None of them looked worried. Of course they didn't. In their minds, the money was already theirs. See, for 18 years I'd been filling that account, tips, extra shifts, holiday cash, the forgotten $20s from drunk businessmen. I filled it when I was broke. I filled it when business tanked. I filled it even when my parents borrowed money, when Megan needed mortgage help, when Dylan needed tools he later lost. But Mia? Mia was supposed to be the first in our family to break the cycle. MIT was the miracle she earned 1 quiet hour at a time, hunched over textbooks while I drove the night shift. And now my family was treating her future like loose change between couch cushions. So I walked into the hallway, leaned against the cold wall, and dialed the one person I trusted to stay calm when I couldn't. Vic Patel, the lawyer I once rescued during a snowstorm taxi ride, who'd told me, "If you ever need legal help and don't want to get burned, call me." When he picked up, I said the line I didn't know was inside me until it came out. "I think my parents just stole my kid's college fund." And Vic said, "Okay. We're going to fix this. But first, go back in there and ask to speak with the branch manager alone. Tell him there may be fraud involved." Fraud. That word tasted like electricity. I went back in. And that was the moment everything shifted, from me being the family's reliable little ATM to being the guy who finally fought back. The second I stepped back into that glass office, I could feel 3 pairs of eyes roll in perfect, synchronized irritation. Megan didn't even look up from her phone. My dad was still chatting with the manager like they were old fishing buddies. My mom was rummaging in her purse with the intensity of someone searching for a mint and moral justification at the same time. "Before anything goes through," I said, voice steady only because I was holding myself together with sheer will, "I need to speak with the manager alone." Megan groaned theatrically. "Oh my God, Larry! Don't be dramatic. You're embarrassing yourself." I looked at the manager and repeated calmly, "Alone." Maybe it was my face. Maybe it was the word Vic told me to use. Maybe the manager had seen this exact kind of family meltdown 100 times. Either way, he nodded. My family shuffled out, muttering. I closed the door behind them and put Vic on speaker. The manager sat down, already nervous. "Hi," Vic said, voice smooth as glass. "This is attorney Vic Patel. Mr. Russo believes there has been an unauthorized transfer from a custodial 529 account. We need the transfer frozen immediately and all account documentation pulled up. The manager's eyes widened. Of course they did. Because suddenly this wasn't family drama. It was legal. He clicked quickly through screens, then frowned. This is odd, he said. The account is a custodial 529 plan. Owner, Larry Russo. Beneficiary, Mia Russo. I'm not seeing any co-owners. Correct, Vic said. So unless Mr. Russo personally authorized the transfer, nothing should have moved. The manager swallowed. Well, the transfer wasn't completed yet. It was a queued internal request. So how? I asked. Did my father start a $52,000 transfer from an account he doesn't own? The manager hesitated. Then said the sentence that made everything click. He brought in a power of attorney form last week. Limited access. He said you granted him permission to manage things on your behalf. My stomach dropped. The POA. The stack of papers he handed me after I got rear-ended last year. Me in a hospital bed, dazed and sore. Dad saying, "Just in case something happens, son. Sign these so I can help with bills." I signed without reading. I thought it was for emergencies. Turned out, it was, just not mine. Vic didn't even flinch. That POA, he said, is hereby revoked. Effective immediately. Mr. Russo does not authorize any transfers from that account except for direct educational expenses. Freeze all pending actions. Flag his profile. And note on his file that any use of that POA going forward is unauthorized and fraudulent. The manager nodded so fast I thought his glasses might fly off. Yes, sir. Right away. I'm canceling the transfer. The funds will not leave the account. I felt my knees weaken. The money was safe. My daughter's future still intact. But the part one remember most was what Vic said next, his tone shifting just slightly. Larry. Take a breath. We're not done. My pulse jumped. Next, Vic said, we're going to look through every account your family has access to. Joint accounts. Shared cards. Anything they've touched. And then? A pause. We're going to take back what's yours. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. Because for the first time in my life, someone wasn't telling me to be the bigger person. For the first time, someone was on my side. And we were about to bulldoze 18 years of financial manipulation in a single afternoon. Vic slid a stack of papers toward me so thick it looked like homework for a kid who'd missed 3 months of school. Okay, he said, tapping the top sheet. This is where the bleeding starts. He wasn't wrong. On the printout was the joint savings account my dad convinced me to open years ago. For family vacation someday, son. 6 months ago, it had $31,257. Now, $14,000. I stared at the withdrawals. Payments to Megan wedding savings. Cash withdrawals in my parents' names. Credit card bills for cards I didn't even own anymore. My throat tightened. I let them add me to that account so they take savings seriously, I said quietly. Vic nodded like he'd heard this from 1,000 emotionally exhausted clients. No, he said. You let them add you because you trusted them. They took advantage of that trust. There's a difference. He pointed at another page. And this? Your monthly $600 transfer to your parents. 4 years of that adds up to nearly $30,000. I sank back in my chair. I honestly didn't know the number was that high. Vic's voice softened a notch. Larry, this is financial abuse. I flinched at the word. Abuse felt too big, too dramatic. But the more he explained it, clear patterns, pressure, guilt, entitlement, the more the puzzle pieces clicked together. Next, he helped me revoke every access point my parents had to my accounts. Close the joint savings and move every cent into a new account. Cancel the automatic transfers. Lock down Mia's 529 plan behind multi-factor verification. Add a giant note to everything. No third-party access. Owner verification required. Then came the venue. Turns out Megan had put the $10,000 deposit on my credit card. A card my dad had opened with me for emergencies when I was 22. What part of a waterfront wedding? Dick asked the manager. Is an emergency? When the venue realized the charge was about to be disputed by an attorney, they folded faster than a tray table during landing. Booking cancelled. Deposit reversed. Wedding plans nuked from orbit. And I still hadn't raised my voice once. By the time we were done, I felt empty. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me, fear, guilt, loyalty, everything, and replaced it with quiet. My phone buzzed. Dad, where did the money go? Mom fixed this. Megan, what did you do? I didn't answer. Instead, I sat in the driver's seat of my cab, looked at the screenshot of Mia's MIT acceptance letter, and finally let myself breathe. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. And that scared them more than anything. The next morning, my phone lit up like a slot machine having a nervous breakdown. 23 missed calls. 7 voicemails. A group chat meltdown so dramatic it should have come with popcorn. I ignored all of it. I drove my morning airport run, dropped off a businessman who called his assistant, sweetheart, 3 times, and a dad wrangling twins who kept asking if I'd ever flown a taxi before. Normal chaos. Not family chaos. But when I pulled into my usual coffee spot at 10:14 a.m., my phone started vibrating nonstop. Dad. I sighed and answered, putting it on speaker and tossing it on the passenger seat. What did you do? He barked. No hello. They're saying I can't access the account. The wedding money disappeared. The bank flagged me. Are you trying to get me arrested? You tried to steal from your granddaughter, I said. If anyone should be worried about the word arrested, it's you. He scoffed. Don't be dramatic. We just rearranged things. You've always been so sensitive. It's not stealing if it's family. Ah, yes. The family loophole. As binding as the U.S. tax code and equally abused. Mom's voice cut in from speakerphone hell. Larry, honey, think about Dylan. The wedding is in 4 months. Deposits are due. We already promised people. We only took what made sense. Mia is smart, she'll get scholarships. Mia got into MIT. I replied. That is the scholarship. Silence. Then Dad. MIT? You think they're going to accept her? She's a cabbie's kid from Boston. Those places are for rich families. And there it was. It was never about money. It was about status. About who they believed deserved opportunity. They thought Dylan's wedding meant more than Mia's future. Listen carefully, I said, feeling something in me settle. This is the last time I'm saying this. I inhaled, steadying my voice. You are off my accounts. All of you. The monthly transfers have stopped. The joint savings is closed. The wedding deposit is gone. Mia's fund is locked down. You don't get a cent more from me. Dad exploded. You ungrateful little, we raised you. We depended on that money. You're ruining your nephew's life over a number on a screen. They kept yelling. I let them. Let it burn itself out. When they finally gasped for air, I said the sentence I'd been building toward for 18 years. I'm not your backup bank. And I'm not funding a family that doesn't consider my daughter part of it. Mom went for the nuclear button. So you're choosing her over us? I laughed, short and sharp. Yes. That's what being a parent is. Then I hung up. They called back. I blocked them. Not 10 minutes later, the extended family began their rounds, my aunt, my uncle, a cousin, Dylan's fiancé, all wanting my side of the story. And when Dylan's fiancé messaged me privately to say, they told everyone you gambled away Mia's fund and blamed them. That cold clarity returned. I wrote back. The money is there. They tried to move it to your wedding account behind my back. asked the bank whose name was on the account. 3 dots. Then, oh, the match had finally hit the gasoline. I didn't witness the meltdown at my parents' house in person. But by noon the next day, 7 different relatives had sent me versions of the same story, each one messier than the last, like a game of telephone run by emotionally unstable adults. Here's the stitched-together version. When the waterfront venue officially released the date and confirmed the deposit dispute, Megan lost her mind so violently that a neighbor thought someone was being murdered and peered over the fence. She was screaming, my cousin Mark told me, like someone stole her identity. Which, hilariously, she kind of did. Apparently, Megan stood in the middle of my parents' kitchen waving printed vendor contracts like she was reenacting a courtroom drama no one asked for. You two were supposed to drain it all. She shrieked at my parents. My dad shouted back that he tried before I pulled a stunt. My mom cried, loudly, theatrically, like grief alone could reverse bank policy. Dylan, sweet, average Dylan, finally snapped. He slammed his hands on the counter. I didn't ask anyone to steal from Mia. Dead silence. Then he grabbed his keys and left, knocking over a bowl of plastic fruit on the way out. Half the guest list quietly became unavailable. Within 24 hours. My parents blamed me for everything, obviously. Megan blamed me for her ruined future. Even though she still had a fiancé, a house, and minor detail, was the one who attempted grand theft education in the first place. They tried the final tactic that always worked when I was younger. Show up in person and bulldoze me into compliance. It was a Tuesday evening. Mia and I were at the tiny round kitchen table, comparing dorm meal plans and arguing about whether meal credits were a scam. Someone knocked. Hard. Mia flinched. I knew that knock. I opened the door but blocked the entrance with my body. My parents stood there like a disappointed statue display. My dad, in his fraying Bruins jacket. My mom, with her lips pressed so thin they were practically gone. We're here to talk some sense into you, Dad said, trying to shove past me. I didn't move an inch. There's nothing to talk about. Mom glanced past me and saw Mia at the table. You're confusing her, Mom snapped. Dragging her into adult issues. She doesn't understand money. Mia stood up. She was shaking, but she stepped into the doorway beside me. I understand you tried to take my college fund, she said quietly. And I understand you don't think I belong at MIT. My mom's mouth actually fell open. That's not, we were just reorganizing. My dad cut in, annoyed. Fine. Maybe we don't think you belong there. Maybe you're setting yourself up to fail. And when you drop out, don't come crying to us. Mia didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She just nodded once. Don't worry, she said. I won't. Something flickered in my dad's face. Maybe guilt. Maybe recognition. Maybe just indigestion. Either way, it didn't matter. Dad, I said, you are not entitled to my money. Or my daughter's future. We're done. Then I shut the door. They didn't knock again. On the other side, I heard my mom whisper. He'll come around. He always does. For the first time in my life, she was wrong. Mia moved into her dorm in late August. If you've never helped a first-gen kid unpack at MIT during a Boston heatwave, imagine boiling a human being alive inside an overfull Rubbermaid bin. Now add stairs. We crammed her entire life into my cab, bedding, 2 suitcases, a lamp with a wobbly base, a box of books heavy enough to flatten a grown man, and a literal bin of instant noodles. MIT was buzzing, parents sweating through polo shirts, wide-eyed freshmen pretending not to cry, overly enthusiastic volunteers yelling, "Welcome to campus!" like they were paid by the decibel. Her roommate's family had already left but taped a sticky note on the desk. Welcome, Mia! Smiley face, Jules. Cute kid. Good sign. We set up her bed. Tucked her acceptance letter in the closet door. Put a tiny photo strip of us next to her desk lamp. Then Mark, my cousin, the only relative whose moral compass doesn't spin wildly, showed up with his wife and their kids. He handed Mia an MIT hoodie. "You'll need this in like 2 weeks," he said. "This place drops from summer to freezer without warning." Mia pulled it on, even though she was already sweating like a politician under oath. We all grabbed food from a truck by the river, sat on the grass, watched boats drift by. There were 8 of us. Not a big clan, not some Hallmark family reunion, just the ones who showed up because they wanted to, not because they expected something. On my phone were 3 unread texts from my mom. "We heard move-in is today. We weren't invited. You'll regret this." Maybe in another universe, I'd have wanted that perfect grandparent on the lawn photo. But looking at Mia, nervous, glowing, genuinely excited, I knew I didn't regret anything. On the drive home, MIT shrinking in the rearview mirror, she leaned forward between the seats. "Do you think they'll ever apologize?" she asked. I shook my head slowly. "I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not." She nodded like she already knew the answer. "Do they still get money from you?" she asked. "No," I said. "They don't." She let out a long breath. A release she'd probably been holding her whole childhood. "Good," she whispered. At a red light, I looked back at her. "You know that account?" I said. "The one they tried to steal? It's yours. Not just for tuition. For whatever comes next." She smiled. "Best driver I ever had." The light turned green. The MIT sticker on the rear window caught the sun like a badge. When we got home, the chair at the end of our tiny table sat empty. I didn't rush to fill it. That night, I slid the most recent college fund statement into a folder labeled MIA, Future. For the first time in years, it felt like a promise I could keep. The quiet didn't settle so much as creep in, a slow, unfamiliar peace that felt wrong at first, like I'd forgotten to set an alarm that had dictated my life for 18 years. Nobody was asking for rent money. Nobody needed a short-term loan. Nobody was suggesting I pay for a vacation I wasn't invited to. My phone, once a slot machine of emergencies, now sat on the table like any normal piece of plastic. It was unnerving. For a week, I kept checking to make sure it hadn't died. Then, one afternoon, it rang. My dad. Just the name made my stomach dip the way it does when a plane hits a sudden pocket of nothingness. But something in me was steadier now, heavier, grounded. I answered. He cleared his throat, the same sound he made before lectures, bad news, and anything involving tools he didn't want to use. "Your mother is upset," he began. "I know," I said. "She says you disrespected her," he added. "And Hannah. And the family." I waited. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I also know how much you've helped them. I've seen your name on their bank statements." I exhaled through my nose, not quite a laugh, not quite disbelief. He'd known. All this time. The tension in the silence was the kind that makes pilots check the horizon, wondering what's coming. "I should have said something sooner," he admitted. "I didn't. That's on me." I sank onto the arm of my couch, stunned. This wasn't absolution. It wasn't a heartfelt apology. But coming from my father, the man who treated emotion like a rental car surcharge, it was seismic. "I don't agree with what happened at the bank," he went on quietly. "Or the wedding thing. It was wrong." The word wrong hit harder than any shouted insult. "Thanks for saying that." I managed. He hesitated. "I hope you're taking care of yourself up there," he said. "Flying around all the time, it's easy to forget to land." My throat tightened. Not with guilt. Not with fear. Just recognition. "I'm trying," I said. "For what it's worth." He murmured, "I think Mia's going to do just fine at MIT." It wasn't approval. But it was permission, finally, to believe in my own kid. We didn't fix 18 years of imbalance in a 5-minute call. He didn't drag my mother in to apologize, didn't try to negotiate reconciliation on her behalf. He just said what he needed to say and hung up. And somehow, that was enough for that day. Later that week, I found myself walking through the city on a rare, bright morning, no shift, no emergencies, no family crisis stalking me like weather. For once, the weight on my shoulders wasn't about what someone else needed. It was just mine. I passed the barber shop window and didn't even recognize myself at first. Tired, sure, but lighter. Like someone had turned off a noise I didn't realize had been running for so long. My phone buzzed. A text from Mia. Made a friend in physics lab. We're getting lunch. Don't wait up. Smiley face. I smiled at the screen and kept walking. Boundaries didn't just protect her future. They were giving me one too. 2 months passed before I saw my parents again, not in person, not by choice, but on my phone, through a grainy screenshot a cousin sent with the caption. You should probably see this. It was my mother's latest Facebook post. A long one. The kind where the font shrinks because the rant outweighs the character limit. It began with something like, "Some parents give everything, and some children turn their backs when we need them most." Then came a paragraph about sacrifice, heartbreak, and my personal favorite, a stolen wedding. She didn't mention the part where she tried to steal my daughter's future, but you can't expect too much accuracy from someone who thinks a 529 plan is community property. Below the post were 50-something comments from her friends. Stay strong. You raised him better than that. Kids today don't respect family. Not a single one acknowledged that she tried to funnel $52,000 into a wedding for a grown man who once set a microwave on fire trying to melt butter. I put the phone down. The anger didn't spike this time. It didn't even simmer. It just faded. Because for once, her version of reality didn't control mine. I had documents, boundaries, and a daughter thriving in Cambridge. I didn't need to defend myself to people who didn't know the story and didn't care to. Still, the post spread through the family grapevine fast. By the next morning, 3 cousins texted saying, "We know your mom's blowing smoke." One aunt wrote, "I'm sorry she keeps dragging everyone into this." Another sent a cryptic voice note that began with, "Family is a prison sometimes," and ended with, "Do you still drive nights? I need a ride on Thursday." But then came the surprise. A message from Megan. Just one sentence. "Can we talk?" My first instinct was no. My second instinct was hell no. But something in me, the part that had been practicing emotional CPR since the bank, told me to at least hear her out. So after my shift, I parked under a street lamp, cracked open a seltzer, and called her. She answered on the first ring. "Larry?" she said. Her voice sounded small. A brand new size. "I'm not calling for money." "That's good," I said. "Because I'm not giving you any." She let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it since the meltdown. "We're managing," she said. "It's tight, but we're managing. We got a cheaper venue. Luke picked up extra shifts. I started budgeting." Budgeting. From Megan. The girl who once spent $200 on matching family pajamas in April. "That's good," I said. More breathing. Like she was trying to gather courage from the air. "I'm not apologizing for everything," she said finally. "I'm not ready for that. But I shouldn't have tried to take Mia's money. I know that now." The words landed like a soft knock on a door I didn't realize was still open. "Thank you," I said simply. "I didn't think." She broke off, voice cracking. "I just thought weddings were supposed to be big. I thought you'd help because you always help." "That was the problem," I said. Not angry now. Just honest. "I know," she whispered. For a moment neither of us spoke. I could hear her kids in the background, laughing, arguing, living their little chaotic lives. Lives I didn't have to fund anymore. Finally she said, "I'm trying to do better." I nodded even though she couldn't see it. "That's all you need to do." When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, engine off, city humming around me. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was movement. Not a reset, just a shift. A small, unexpected break in the weather. The kind pilots look for on the radar. Not the storm ending, but the moment you realize you're finally flying out of it. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. I just pulled into the taxi lot after a 12-hour shift, the kind where your spine feels like it's been replaced with a bargain bin accordion, when my dispatcher waved me over. "Phone call for you, Larry," he said, handing me the landline like it was radioactive. Nobody calls the lot phone. Nobody. Except maybe my mom. If she'd figured out a new way to bypass the block list. But when I answered, the voice that came through wasn't angry, wasn't guilt-laced, wasn't even defensive. It was my dad. "Hey," he said softly. "You got a minute?" Just hearing him without Mom in the background felt surreal. Like talking to a man I hadn't met before. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "What's up?" A pause. "You left something at the house," he said. My stomach nodded. I ran through the mental inventory. Tools? Keys? A jacket? Then he added, "It's Mia's old science trophy. The first one. From when she was, what, 9? I closed my eyes. That little trophy, the state science fair one with the crooked star, had sat on their mantel for years. Mom always bragged about Dylan's sports ribbons, but that trophy? That was the only thing of Mia's she ever displayed. "Okay," I said slowly. "You can just leave it by the door. I'll pick it up." My dad hesitated. "That's not why I called." Another pause. "Larry, I want to see you." 5 words. Simple words. But they carried weight, years of avoidance, complicity, silence, and the quiet ways he let my mother run the narrative while he stood in the background. "What for?" I asked. "To talk," he said. "Just us. Not your mother. She doesn't know I called." That alone knocked the air out of me a little. "I've been thinking a lot," he continued. "About things. Choices. Mistakes." My chest tightened. This wasn't his usual script. "I'm old enough now," he said, voice thin, "to admit I wasn't a very good father when it came to protecting you. Or Mia." A lump formed in my throat without warning. He cleared his throat, the signature dad reset. "I can't change what your mother does. I can't undo what happened. But I'd like a chance to do better with you. If you'll let me." And for the first time in my life, he wasn't telling me what he expected from me. He was asking. I leaned against the cab, staring at the asphalt, the distant hum of airport traffic filling the silence. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to ask where this version of him had been for the last 20 years. But another part, the part that had watched Mia walk into her dorm with pride in her eyes, knew something else. Breaking cycles doesn't always mean burning every bridge. Sometimes it means walking across one slowly, carefully, checking it for cracks as you go. Finally I said, "Okay. We can meet. But it stays between us. And there are boundaries." "Of course," he said. "You tell me when and where." As I hung up, something settled in my chest, a strange, unfamiliar mix of grief, hope, and suspicion. The emotional equivalent of flying through turbulence and feeling the plane level out for just a moment. Not safe yet. But steadier than before. When I got home, I texted Mia. "Dad. Hey kiddo. Grandpa called me today. He wants to talk. Just him." Her reply came 3 seconds later. "Mia, do you want that?" I stared at the question. For once, the answer wasn't tangled in guilt or fear. "Dad. Yeah. I think I do. 3 dots. Then, Mia. Okay. Just be careful with your heart." I smiled at the screen. She wasn't 9 anymore. But she was still the smartest person in the room. We met at a diner. Not a dramatic setting, not emotional neutral ground, just a tired little place off Route 1 that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead and pie sweet enough to kill them again. My dad chose it. Of course he did. He's eaten the same breakfast combo there since the 80s. When I walked in, he was already in a booth, hands folded on the table, staring at the laminated menu like it contained the meaning of life. He looked older. Not in the gray hair way, he'd had that for decades, but smaller. Like too much weight had finally shifted off him, and now he didn't know how to stand without it. He didn't smile when he saw me, but he did exhale, like he'd been holding his breath since the day of the bank incident. "Larry," he said softly. "Dad." A waitress dropped 2 waters and left us alone. My dad kept fiddling with the sugar packets, lining them up, then pushing them apart, then lining them up again. We sat in silence long enough for me to wonder if he was going to back out, stand up, and leave. But he didn't. He said, "I want to start by telling you something I should have said a long time ago." I braced. Old habit. But what came out wasn't anger or excuses or anything I'd learned to anticipate. "I'm proud of you." I blinked. Not because I doubted him, but because I couldn't remember the last time he'd said those words. If he ever had at all. He swallowed. "You did what I never did," he continued. "You built something for your kid. You worked yourself into the ground so she'd have a chance at something bigger than what we could give you." He paused. "And instead of protecting that, I helped tear it down." Hearing that, out loud, in his voice, hit harder than any accusation I'd ever imagined. "I knew your mother was asking for too much," he went on. "I knew Megan was taking advantage. You think I didn't see you slipping them money? Covering bills? I saw it. I just..." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't want to fight with your mother. There it was. The truth behind everything. He'd chosen peace in the house over fairness in the family. I'm not excusing it," he added quickly. "I'm telling you because you deserve someone to say it plain." I stared at him. For years I thought his silence meant agreement. Approval. Maybe even disappointment in me. Turns out it was fear. "Dad," I said slowly. "Why now?" His eyes flicked up, wet around the edges. "Because when you shut that door, when you said you were done, I realized something." My breath caught. "You weren't cutting us out," he said. "You were saving yourself. And your daughter. And maybe that was the first time I understood what responsibility really looks like." He shifted in the booth, uncomfortable with his own vulnerability. "You did the right thing," he said simply. "Even if it meant losing us." That sentence, "you did the right thing," landed like a weight being set down instead of thrown. He reached into a paper bag on the seat beside him and slid something across the table. Mia's old science trophy. The crooked star. Her name spelled wrong on the plaque. The one she held up at 9 years old like she just invented gravity. "We kept it," he said. "Not because of pride. Because it reminded us of you." My throat closed up. Completely. We sat there for a long while. Not fixing everything. Not pretending. Just being 2 flawed men trying to build something small and real out of the wreckage. Before we left, he said, "I can't promise your mother will ever understand. But if you ever want me in your life, in Mia's life, I'll show up the way I should have years ago." I nodded. "That's all I need." We walked out separately, but the distance between us felt smaller than it had in decades. That night I texted Mia. "Dad, it went okay. Better than I expected." Her response: "Mia, I'm glad. But remember, you set the altitude. He doesn't get to fly the plane anymore." I laughed. Even when she wasn't in the cab, she still navigated better than most adults I knew. 2 days after the diner meeting, something happened that would have sent the old me into a spiral of panic. A letter arrived. Not a text. Not a voicemail. Not one of those long Facebook guilt manifestos my mom specialized in. A real letter. Envelope. Stamp. Handwriting I'd known since childhood. My mother's sharp cursive, the kind that looked like it could slice skin if you ran your finger over it. I stared at it on my kitchen counter for a full minute before opening it. Mia hovered near the toaster like she was pretending not to watch. Inside was a single page. No dramatic opener. No 10-paragraph sermon about disappointing the family. Just, Larry, I don't agree with what you did. I don't think you ever will understand how much we sacrifice for you. But I talked to your father. And he says you're serious this time. If you want to come over for Sunday dinner, you can. If not, well, that's your choice now. Mom. Mia read it over my shoulder. That's not an apology, she said flatly. No, I said. It's not. It's not even close. Right. So, what do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? For 45 years, Sunday dinner wasn't optional, it was gravitational. Whether I wanted to or not, I was pulled into that orbit. The kitchen noise, the guilt-smothered small talk, the passive-aggressive expectations. Now, the orbit was broken. The gravity was gone. I don't know, I admitted. Mia took the letter, set it face down on the counter, and said, You don't have to choose today. I nodded, grateful. But that night, when she went to bed, I found myself pacing the living room, trophy still sitting on the bookshelf where I'd placed it earlier. Part of me wanted to go back. Part of me missed, not them, but the idea of them. The version I'd hoped for. The version that didn't exist. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man cleared his throat awkwardly. Is this Mr. Russo? Yeah. This is Officer Delgado with Boston PD. Don't worry, nothing's wrong on your end. But... A pause. I felt the air shift around me. We need to ask you a few questions. It concerns a financial complaint filed earlier today. Your name came up in connection with your parents. My heart dropped, suddenly, painfully, and every old instinct kicked in. Fix it. Smooth it over. Protect them. But then Delgado finished. To be clear, Mr. Russo, we're not investigating you. I sank down onto the arm of the couch. We're investigating them. And just like that, everything inside me went profoundly, terrifyingly still. This wasn't another boundary fight. It wasn't another emotional tug-of-war. This was fallout. This was consequence. This was the moment you realize that doing the right thing doesn't shield you from the storm. It just lets the storm hit the people who built it. Officer Delgado's questions were brief, almost gentle. Dates, signatures, accounts tied to my name. Every answer felt like peeling off another layer of a life I'd let them script for me. When the call ended, I just sat there in the dark, listening to the refrigerator hum, letting the truth settle in. This time, I wasn't the one scrambling to contain the fire. Mia padded out of her room, hair messy, eyes sleepy. Dad? You okay? I nodded, slow. Yeah. I think things are finally changing. She came to sit beside me, tucking her knees up like she did when she was little. Are you scared? A little, I admitted. But not of losing them. More of what comes after. She rested her head on my shoulder. Whatever comes next, it's ours. Not theirs to decide. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere distant, fading into the city night. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for impact. I was letting go of the wreckage, watching it drift away, and choosing, finally, what to build in its place.